It is the moment the strength of men failed, when the actions of one would lead to centuries of misery in Middle-earth. Or is it? Is it rather a case of too little information for certain characters and a common misconception among the fandom? Today on Nerd of the Rings, we cover Elrond, Isildur, and the One Ring. Ever since Peter Jackson's incredible adaptation of The Fellowship of the Ring, fans have wondered why Elrond didn't do more to avoid the survival of the One Ring, and by extension, Sauron himself. We find present-day Elrond lamenting Isildur's failure to destroy the One Ring at the crack of doom, judging rather harshly both Isildur and his race. However, this isn't exactly how things play out within Tolkien's books. As we've discussed elsewhere, Isildur takes the ring not by a miraculous stroke in a moment of vulnerability, but as the remaining leader of men after Sauron's body is defeated. With Sauron laying upon the ground, Isildur uses the hilt shard of his father's sword to cut off Sauron's finger, taking his ruling ring and causing Sauron to abandon his physical form. It is here, on the slopes of Mount Doom, that Elrond and Cirdan would counsel Isildur to destroy the ring, as Elrond recalls in his famous council in Rivendell. "Alas, yes," said Elrond, "Isildur took it, as should not have been. It should have been cast then into orodruin's fire nigh at hand where it was made. But few marked what Isildur did. He alone stood by his father in that last mortal contest, and by gil-galad only Cirdan stood, and I. But Isildur would not listen to our counsel. 'This I will have as were-gild for my father and my brother,' he said. And therefore, whether we would or no, he took it to treasure it. But soon he was betrayed by it to his death. And so it is named in the north, Isildur's Bane." Firstly, we see how Isildur's taking of the ring goes largely unnoticed, with Elrond implying it is only he and Cirdan who would have seen the pivotal act. He goes on to say that it is here, on the slopes of Mount Doom, not within it, that he and Cirdan counsel Isildur to destroy the ring. Now, if we were limited to the text of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, it would stand to reason that Elrond would have no idea that destroying the ring would defeat Sauron. However, if we look at the events as described in the Silmarillion, it appears that Elrond and Cirdan did know this pivotal piece of information. The ruling ring passed out of the knowledge even of the wise in that age, yet it was not unmade, for Isildur would not surrender it to Elrond and Cirdan who stood by. They counseled him to cast it into the fire of orodruin nigh at hand, in which it had been forged so that it should perish, and the power of Sauron be forever diminished, and he should remain only as a shadow of malice in the wilderness. But Isildur refused this counsel, saying, "This I will have as were-gild for my father's death and my brother's. Was it not I that dealt the enemy his death blow?" And the ring that he held seemed to him exceedingly fair to look on, and he would not suffer it to be destroyed. Taking it, therefore, he returned at first to Minas Anor, and there planted the white tree in memory of his brother Anarion. Whether he knew the true nature of the ring or not, the simple truth is that should Elrond have attempted to force Isildur, no good would have come of it. If we look at the situation, we have High King Gil-galad of the elves and High King Elendil of men laying dead upon the battlefield. With the death of his father, and that of his younger brother years earlier, Isildur is now unquestionably the leader of his people. He is now High King of Gondor and Arnor. And likewise, with Gil-galad dead, Elrond is the next person in line capable of claiming the High Kingship. Though he would not do so, he is still the one all elves will look to in this moment. If the High King of one race were to attack or even kill the High King of the other, an all-out battle would no doubt ensue, and could very well bring about an even larger war between their races. Elrond would be trading a great victory for a new war with the mortal men descended from his own brother. And let us not forget the Númenóreans of old were no mere men. We are talking about 7-foot-tall mountains of men whose glory in battle are the stuff of legend. But for argument's sake, let's say Elrond were to do this and even prevail. Unlike the films, Elrond could not simply, as some fans have so eloquently put it, yeet Isildur into the fires of orodruin. Instead, Elrond, having taken the ring, would make the trek up the mountain, coming to the Samath Naur and the fires of Mount Doom. But could he have cast it into the fire? The answer is almost certainly no. While we know that Frodo alone was capable of bringing the ring so close to its ultimate destruction, even he ultimately could not bring himself to throw it into the fire. While Elrond would have only possessed the ring for the better part of a day, Tolkien also makes it abundantly clear that how one takes possession of the ring matters a great deal. In the case that we've laid out here, Elrond would be taking the ring most similarly to Gollum, who killed his cousin to take it. Beginning your time as ring-bearer with an act of murder would undoubtedly have tainted Elrond in a very real way. In the end, the most likely scenario is that Elrond would have killed his own distant nephew, started a war between elves and men, and claimed the One Ring for his own. While there's no way for Elrond to know this would have been the outcome, it's certainly a bullet dodged for all the world. In all likelihood, a tyrant, double ring-bearing Elrond would have led to a Middle-earth torn apart by war and primed for the return of Sauron even earlier than in the canon tale. Still, there's more about this situation that paints Isildur in a bad light within the films. And indeed, it wouldn't be until the release of 1980's Unfinished Tales that readers would discover that when Isildur marched north toward Rivendell, it was not merely to find his family and take up the kingship of Arnor. Indeed, Isildur had had a change of heart about the ring. Elendil, his son, would find the king standing alone, lost in thought, as the company is preparing for the attack of the orcs. There was a pause, though the most keen-eyed among the Dunedain said that the orcs were moving inwards, stealthily, step by step. Elendil went to his father, who was standing dark and alone as if lost in thought. "Atarinya," he said, "what of the power that would cow these foul creatures and command them to obey you? Is it then of no avail?" "Alas, it is not, Senya. I cannot use it. I dread the pain of touching it, and I have not yet found the strength to bend it to my will. It needs one greater than I now know myself to be. My pride has fallen. It should go to the keepers of the three." That's right, Isildur, who understandably for adaptational purposes has been portrayed as one completely consumed by the ring, actually came to regret having it, and sought to bring Sauron's prize to the elves. As we know, the orc attack would lead to the disaster of the Gladden fields, and Elendil would find his father at the end. Elendil, not yet harmed, sought Isildur. He was rallying the men on the east side where the assault was heaviest, for the orcs still feared the elendilmir that he bore on his brow and avoided him. Elendil touched him on the shoulder, and he turned fiercely, thinking an orc had crept behind. "My king," said Elendil, "Cirion is dead, and Aratan is dying. Your last counselor must advise, nay, command you, as you commanded Ota. Go, take your burden, and at all costs bring it to the keepers, even at the cost of abandoning your men, and me." "King's son," said Isildur, "I knew that I must do so, but I feared the pain. Nor could I go without your leave. Forgive me and my pride that has brought you to this doom." Elendil kissed him. Go now," he said. So the tragedy of the Gladden Fields becomes even more tragic, for Isildur had finally resolved to be rid of the One Ring. It's hard to say how this would have played out should Isildur have survived the Gladden Fields and made it to Rivendell. Would a different, earlier fellowship have been assembled? Would they have marched to Mordor relatively unchallenged, only to erupt in war in that cursed land? Could the fact that Isildur claimed the ring as weregild, rather than an act of murder, have allowed him to hand it off as Bilbo had? We know that Frodo was uniquely capable to get the ring as far as he did, and while Isildur may have had a change of heart for a time, could he too have been taken by the ring and followed after it like a golem, but with an army? We can never know for certain, but what we do know is that should Elrond have attempted to take the ring by force, it would only have resulted in more death and chaos. As always, I want to say a huge thank you to all my Patreon and YouTube supporters who make this channel possible. CCDC Red Team, Evil Chameleon, Tom DeBombadil 19, Lissamy the Cinda, Rabbi Rob Thomas, Charles Leisure, Joe Tepper, The Mighty Mim, Andrew Carlisle, Swirled Traveler, Matthew Jeffrey, Viking Lord, Alvin Einbert, Jeremy Daniel Derby, Madame Director, Freya Firestar, Chris and Meg Q, Leo Vittori, Sky Carcass, Slide Belts, Dane Ragnarsson, Berto Berg, Graham Derricott, The Dark-Haired One, Wyland, Kiara Berlin, Z and N, Evely, Kia, Landry Quinn Walker, Ice Glazer, Micah Wu, and Debbie. If you enjoyed the artwork in this video, check out the artists in the description to purchase prints of their great work for yourself. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Nerd of the Rings.